Hello and welcome. This is part of our networking series. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure DHCP service from a Cisco router. In a small office, you might have only a router that provides you the routing, but you also need DHCP. So you might have a device that provides the wireless, some interfaces for switching, some routing, and also DHCP DNS service. So some Cisco products, you can find them doing those services, or the home broadband does all that. But here we've got Cisco 1841, and I want to use that doesn't provide wireless, but I want to provide IP addressing to the devices in these subnets, the 20.1.1.0 and the 10.1.1.0, wherever they are in the building. So we have users across the building in this floor, in that floor, and some CCTVs across the building. And the two subnets we know now is 20.1.1.0, 10.1.1.0. So what I will do, there will be some devices like the router interface which will have .1, and we don't want to make the IP provided through DHCP. We want to keep those for some services. So what we're going to do in Cisco, and opposite to Microsoft, you do the subnet and then you exclude some IP addresses. You reserve them. But here you actually configure the reserve. It's a good idea to do what IPs you don't want to provide through DHCP. So 10.1.1.10. So if we start from 1, that's the router, all the way to 10.1.1.10. Let's say we are reserving those IP addresses for VLAN 10. And so VLAN 10, we're reserving that. And for VLAN 20, starting from 1 all the way to 20.1.1.10. These 10 IP addresses we're not providing through DHCP. Anything after that, starting from .11, that will be given to the devices, the PCs, the laptops, the phones, and all that. So while having that in mind, then we create a pool. So pool 1, let's call it pool 1, and that's for VLAN 10. And that VLAN 10, we call it CCTV if you want to. It should be, yeah, let's call it CCTV. And then pool 2, we will give it to VLAN 20, and we call it staff. So now we have this kind of basic information as part of the planning, and let's configure that on the router. If we go to a router, and if you get this one here, if we say, if you go to config terminal, we create the exclusion list. So it was actually, let me make this one smaller so you can see better. So IP DHCP and then dash excluded address, IP dash DHCP excluded address, and then you provide the subnet you want to, the range you want to remove from being given through DHCP. So let's say for VLAN 10, it's going to be 10.1.1. Start from 10 up to 10.1.1.10. So 10 IP addresses from that. But for VLAN 20, we also excluded address 20.1.1.1 all the way to 20.1.1.10. We created an exclusion of 10 IP addresses from each VLAN. Now we want to create the pool 1 and pool 2. And our first pool, we call it CCTV because it's VLAN 10. So let's call it IP DHCP pool, and then we give the name. Let's call it CCTV, or maybe just to make it clearer, you might call it VLAN 10. Let's call VLAN 10, and then maybe add the name CCTV, and VLAN 10 IP DHCP pool. I forgot the keyword pool. And then we have now the DHCP configuration, and here we can provide the network, we can provide the default gateway. So if you put question mark, you see all these are available, and you have to provide the default gateway, the network itself, and then we've got options, sometimes options that provide configuration parameters, but there are loads of other things you can do. Here we just want to set up the basic DHCP, and I will start with the network, and the first network is 10.1.1.0. That's our network, and then the subnet mask .0, and then the default router it's going to be the router itself, fast Ethernet 00, which was 10.1.1.1, and then we have a DNS server, and the DNS server, I don't have it now. We might configure it in the staff VLAN 20, let's call it 20. Yeah, I'll put one DNS server here, and so let's call it 20.1.1.100. It doesn't exist, but we will have that one configured later. And you can create other things in here. We've got the network, we've got the default router or the default gateway, and we've got the DNS. That's enough for that pool. If we go to the other pool, I can use the up arrow, and in the up arrow I just change VLAN, or that first one is actually wrong. We call it VLAN 1. We can rename that and call it VLAN 10, but for now let's stick on the VLAN 1 as it is. VLAN 1 is the default, we can't use it, but let's do 20 and then stuff. And what next you have to do is the network. So it was 20.1.1.0, 255.255.255.0, and then default router. Default dash router is the router from this subnet, which was 20.1.1.1, and then DNS server is the same for our whole site, and that one was 20.1.1.100. It doesn't exist, as we said. We're going to configure it later, but this information will be provided to the clients. And if I go back and maybe say show run, and exit first, exit, and then show run, I want to show you the pool, and it is excluded addresses. Here, first pool, first 10 IPs are excluded. Second pool, first 10 IPs are excluded again. That one's wrong. I want to change that name. So then we will put these configurations back. So I need to get that whole line, to delete it, copy, and then if you say Control C and I go to config mode, and if I put no, and then paste whatever I've configured, if I exit, and if I now say show run, do you see the pool, which was 10, it's gone. And I need to go back to the config mode, so Control C, Conf T, and we're going to recreate the pool. So if I copy the line, and let's go to the pool, the original one. So here we have copy that pool, and we need to add the 0 over there. So if we paste, but now I'm going to change, I need to add 0, and if you copied and pasted this configuration somewhere, then it's easy to recover. So all that thing in one go, I'm going to copy and paste it. So imagine you have that text file, the configuration file somewhere, you will be recovering the configuration that way. We will do different videos, how to backup, how to recover, how to take a configuration backup, things like that. So now if I exit, and if I say show run, you see the two pools with the name that was updated, and the exclusions are there. They have the same DNS because it's one DNS server in our whole network. And let's save it. That's all good. And the DHCP is there now. Let's go to VLAN 10 and go to this client, say get your DHCP IP from here. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Go to desktop. Previously we configured 10.1.1.10. This IP shouldn't be used. 11 will be the start because 10 is reserved. So what I'm going to do, I will change from static to DHCP, and I want this to be configured, this to be configured, this to be configured, this to be configured dynamically. So DHCP, wait for it, and then after a while that configuration should appear. So you can see 10.1.1.13 is given because 12 is still there, and that's why it's skipping. So we have 10 and 11 and 12. So it says since 10 is not able to be given, we're not able to give 10, and 11 is used by this one, and 12 is used by that one. Let me show you what I mean by that. This device already has 11. So if you see, that is 11 there, and that one uses 12. So it says I'm not going to provide any of those. What's the next one? Is 13. So this one got 13. Let's go back to PC2, change it from IP.11 to another number. 13 was given. Maybe it will pick up 14. So that's the next one. And then we go to this PC. They're on all VLAN 10. And if we click on that, then DHCP will provide 15. So the DNS information, default gateway, that's what we configured in the pool. and those devices are getting the DHCP. What about the VLAN 20? Let's do the same for that machine, and let me drag. I've got 2 screens and it always jumps onto the main. So let's provide that should also start from 13 probably, yes, because we're using those IPs in other devices. So this one has 11, and when we change after 13, you've got the 14, that should appear 14. That's all good. And the last one is this client there, and if somebody is using a laptop or wireless access points provided that subnet, they will be the same. Now you know that server 10.3.3 is still rooted from previous recording, so I can actually go to my PC3 or even this one, and then I visit the website. We called that website previously test page in a previous video or recording. So if you're following all the course series, then you might understand the connection. So 10.3.3.100 is that machine over there, and that test page is appearing. So here now we have an IP. We don't have DNS. We cannot provide DNS names here. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a DNS server here, and then I will fill the details of the naming and IP address mapping in that DNS, including that server. We call it test.local, testpage.local, maybe testpage.com, whatever you call it. Maybe some other services. We call router 1 with one of its IPs, router 2, one of its IPs is which 1, 2, 3. We can create a list. From that list, then we can have the DNS service working. So for this recording, part 1 of the network services, the DHCP, and you are using it from a Cisco router, which is local. But if you are using from a distant router, maybe you are going hops across routers, then we have to add DHCP helper address that's pointing to the DHCP server. Otherwise, this router will block and drop all the broadcast traffic. So that's all for this part. Thank you again, and see you in part 2.